Welcome back for another talk on Relationships Matter. Today's topic is going to be about trust. What happens or what do you need to do to repair trust? We're going to talk about the behaviors, the normal behaviors about what's goes around when people lose or when trust is scratched or getting damaged or getting questioned. And we will also talk about what is the reason why people behave that way. And also, we're going to talk about what some suggestions on how to prepare trust. So stick around. Any thoughts on the from the audience, people? Any questions or any thoughts that you would like to discuss today? No? Anything? No. Okay, good. So I do have a few things that I would like to talk about and I would like to share with everybody. Um, in terms of trust, this is one of the most common things that happens in relationship. Building trust and losing trust. These are the main reasons why people build relationships and sometimes they have to let go of relationships. However, some relationships that are very important, letting go of it is can be negative or can be impacting our lives and how to proceed with our day-to-day life, and as well as how do we build relationships with other people. So it really comes down to experiencing the mistrust. The closer the person is, the closer that person is trusted, the higher the impact on the person who loses that trust. For example, if the parent did something that would cause the child to lose trust in them, it's severely or more severe impact. The impact is more severe on the child than a child's friend betraying them in school or the neighbor. So the closer the person, the stronger the impact. And what would be the normal, common behavior that people resort to when there is a mistrust? Any thoughts? Any guesses from the audience? I need some interactions, otherwise I'll fall asleep. Any like what people do when there is a mistrust? The normal, the common, the usual behavior. How do people react to mistrust? They will confront. Hmm. They will. They will confront angrily. So they're upset. There's angry. There's strong emotions that causing them to express that anger in a negative way. Hmm. Any other behaviors that
They will also
that would also what?
lie.
Lie. Oh yeah. So they would lie. Lie about what?
If they feel something that the other person they don't trust, they could even lie about petty things just to also have no trust together.
So if I lost trust, I would lie, or the person who caused the loss of trust would lie.
The person who lost the trust may also start lying, and it's like a line of defense for themselves. Like, oh, if you can lie, I can lie too.
Oh, so I see. So if I lost trust, then I would assume that you're lying, so therefore it's okay for me to lie. And then I would start lying for the sake of to match up the distrust. So like you distrust me, I can distrust you. Interesting. Yeah.
Often mistrust is derived from the sense of feeling betrayed.
Uh-huh. So the feeling of mistrust or the feeling mistrust is caused or introduced by the feeling of being betrayed. Mm.
Uh, Sheer disappointment, upset, and this can severely affect the relationship. Very adverse.
So how do people behave when these feelings come in? Mistrust, disappointment, sheer disappointment. Mm.
Some people would lash out confrontationally, verbally. Some would isolate themselves.
Mm. Some will confront severely or aggressively, and the others would withdraw and they isolate themselves. Mm-hmm. And any other possibilities?
Uh, some take a more less aggressive stance and just have a more calm talk with someone, or not if or with the person that's betrayed them. Another person, say a friend, to confide in. I guess there are some people that do that, but I think that's common.
So you're saying that some people would just sit down and talk calmly,
Talk
and they.
calmly with the person that's
Oh.
they may have betrayed them,
Mm.
or
How often do you see that happen?
I don't normally see that happen. I've seen a friend of mine do that before.
Mm.
I think that's maybe it's
Yeah, it's the least common, I would say. They sit down and talk and discuss what happened and how you feel about me and distrust and all that. Okay, good, good, good. Thank you guys for contributing to this. So yeah, I would say these are some of the behaviors. I would like to add a few more. They would cut off, not just isolate themselves. They would utterly cut off the whole relationship, and they wouldn't just acknowledge that relationship to ever exist ever again in the future. So that's something that is also very common that you would see the parents do to themselves, to each other, to the children do it um, to the parents, and also couples. Couples, they really use this the most, or they resort to this the most. They just go for divorce. And actually, if you look at it, the the distrust is not number one cause of breakups in marriages. A lot of people think it's like betrayal or mistrust or having other relationships is causes most likely what causes uh, the marriage to break up or the family to break up. Actually, it doesn't. It's not. That's not what research found. Research found is really the negative interpretations, the criticizing, the name calling, the judging. That's more impactful to the relationship than having mistrust, because mistrust can be built. However, it is very common for people to resort to divorce and to resort to cut off. And it can be ugly divorce because of that the mistrust. So what happens is that when people feel mistrusted or they feel like they lost the trust to someone that they trusted, that is a very, very deep hurt. That is hurting their many things. It actually shakes their view of the whole world. They feel like I didn't have to worry about this, and I trusted these people, and all of a sudden, what I thought it would be, a no-brainer, it would cause a shock in the other person's world, and that's why communication is very important. Making judgment and cutting off is not going to help anybody. And some people is like, oh, if I cut off, it'll make me feel better. It'll remove the pain. Actually, it does not. It doesn't. It just it just it may feel good because you're causing that pain to the other person. You're cutting him off without them knowing what's going on, or it really serves no positive purpose in a sense. So it's something that can be fixed, that something can be addressed positively by looking at what caused the mistrust, what could be causing the mistrust. Is it really what you thought is accurate? Is it 100% accurate? Or is it just a thought or a doubt that made you feel mistrust? Because mistrust can happen by us basically assuming things. We may assume because my, I don't know, my partner uh, was texting someone in the middle of the night. I can assume that someone is another person easily. And I asked my partner to show me the text. Like, no, I don't need to show her a text. It's like, but why would you want to hide? Well, it could be anything, right? But then what happens is that because of that assumption, we assume that person is cheating, for example. And therefore that mistrust is invalid. I mean, the causes of it is still 50-50. We don't know for sure. Yeah, question.
In situations like this, right? like let's say you feel mistrust because your partner is texting another person in bed, and then when you act, you automatically assume like, oh yes, I would show you, but in the end, he didn't show you, and that adds to the mistrust. How do you go about a conversation regarding the mistrust? Like,
Okay.
how to bring such things up?
Okay, so just to make sure that your question is audible, is that you're asking is that if that happens, the partner is asking about a text and the other partner decided not to show, and then how do you go about having the conversation to talk about it? Did I hear you correctly?
No, because like what from what I assume is that like let's say I feel distrust. So the first thing I want to do is bring up the question, right? And then the person would shoot down like that. So I'm wondering in a sense like because now both already feel the other person would feel, oh my god, she doesn't trust me because she wants to see who I'm texting, and the other one feels, why can't you show me what you're texting?
What are you hiding?
What are you hiding?
Mm.
So how do you mediate and have a conversation about mistrust
Okay.
regarding these
Okay.
two?
So that's how we can delay it a little bit later on the talk.
Oh,
Yeah.
right.
So the how is really tricky. That's the quick answer. It's not something that you can really read a book about or something I can tell you right now. It's a process that people need to go through. Understanding how to communicate, understand. We'll just get to that towards the end of the talk. So no, it's a very good question. It's a very valid and good question. So we'll stay on the what could be causing it. So so in that situation, well, I can argue that misinterpretation can cause mistrust. So therefore, we need to have the ability to make sure that before I mistrust someone, I need to make sure that it's valid, it's accurate, it's a fact. It's not an assumption. It's not a feeling that I'm just following blindly, and that's really important. So therefore, we need to be rational. Uh, the sense of mistrust can make us act irrationally, and that's sometimes induced by anxiety, induced by ego, induced by culture, induced by so many variables. And it's not just like a one thing that would cause us to feel mistrust. We can feel mistrust about anybody. I mean, like, can you trust your brother to what you call it to keep like $5,000 with? Do you trust your brother or sister? Do you guys trust your sibling or your parent or your best friend? Okay, some of them yes, some of them yes. No, some of them 50-50. But imagine that person that you trust for $5,000, for example. Would you? I'm sorry. No, would you trust them to fix your teeth?
No,
Yeah, fixing your teeth.
no,
Yeah.
no, no,
So would you trust them to fix your car?
no, no,
Unless they're a mechanic, you wouldn't trust them with your car. But do you leave $5,000 in your car and give it to the mechanic?
no.
You wouldn't do that. So trust is an interesting topic all by itself. But if you were to lose the $5,000 from the mechanic, who do you blame? Yourself, right? But it could be also that you misplaced it. You took it out of the car, you put it somewhere else, you forgot, and you thought it was in there. So you would feel like I would never go back to that mechanic, and I just blame myself for not taking my, precaution and all that. But it's that mechanic, and I just assume it's the mechanic that took the $5,000. A week later, I find it underneath my pillow or something. I don't know. I'm just so it could be anything that could cause mistrust. But the question is the mistrust valid, or is there a possibility that there is a misunderstanding, a behavior that was misunderstood by the other party, or it could be a behavior that was mispresented by the first party? Does that make sense? Like the person whom, yeah, like like the example I mentioned earlier, the fact that he or she was like texting in the middle of the night and not showing, that behavior presents itself that you are not trusting the other person to see what's in the text, and therefore you're really presenting yourself and it's not trustworthy. Does that make sense? So therefore, they are allowing that emotion to come in, and that's why there has to be foundations in the relationship to allow this behavior and still for the person to feel trusted. So if the foundation is there, then if I were to tell my partner, for example, to tell her that this is private, I don't want to, I don't feel comfortable sharing it with. If the relationship is solid, therefore that shouldn't make a difference because I can give privacy to my partner because I do trust that person. But if the person is already having doubts about other things and there's baggage of doubts and going on and on and on of mistrust or questions that they never spoke about, and it's just always in the back of their mind, the slightest behavior, it brings that mistrust again and again. And it's basically that the baggage is there because it was never addressed. It was never spoken to and spoken together about. So we don't talk back to this thought of mistrust. That is it valid? Is it based on actual events? Is it based on actual um, facts that I can make a judgment on? And that's why we need to, before we jump into mistrust, we need to be mindful of the possibilities that can cause mistrust. One of them is negative interpretation or misinterpretation. The other one is, as I mentioned earlier, is miscommunication or no communication. So, not having the proper communication with a weak or shaky foundation in the relationship can lead easily to distrust or mistrust. What else? What else could be causing distrust or mistrust?
Oh, usually when you trust people, that means you care about them, right? What can cause distrust is if the other person doesn't reciprocate that care.
Okay, how would you not reciprocate that care? What kind of things you would do that with the other person would think, yeah, they don't care.
I feel like some people believe that relationships or partnerships should be 50-50. So when it's like 80-30, it becomes non-reciprocal, and then the trust is like, oh my god, does this person even like me? Things like that.
So, do you believe relationships need to be 50-50?
Personally, no. I feel it changes each time.
It goes back. It's like fluctuates.
Depending on who
Hmm.
needs more support.
Hmm. All right. All right. Well, good thoughts. I appreciate sharing that. So, so, um, so the behavior is, how would you summarize the behavior itself?
Expecting.
Expectancy. Like expecting something from your partner or from the other person in the relationship. And yeah, and then they expecting something. If you didn't get it,
Mm.
it would cause that, they don't care.
Mm.
Mm.
But I also feel expectancy needs to be controlled in like partnership.
Controlled.
Like find out what's realistic expectations for you both together.
Mm. Okay. And in that sense, if it's controlled, then what would happen?
You wouldn't feel like your security or support just depends on your relationship, because yes, you work together, but you're also an individual on your own.
Mm.
Before somebody else makes you feel secure, you need to make yourself feel secure. Understand?
I see. I see. All right. So that gives you security when it's in control, basically, or that gives the person secure, not you personally, but yeah, it would give the person in that relationship some kind of security because they're able to control their expectations. Okay. Yeah, that's totally valid, and that's a valid way to look at it. Um, so so expectations, if they are not spoken, then there are expectations. If they are spoken, then there are needs. So we need to understand that unspoken needs, there are expectations without the other person knowing what you're expecting. Without the other person is guessing. Like, oh, let's do this. Oh, let's do that. And there's like, oh, they're not. So it's like cooking a stuffed lamb for lunch, taking them to a 5-star restaurant, and all they needed is just some time with you to sit down and drink, to have a, like a talk over coffee or something. But you would be in a five-star restaurant and you're busy with the food and their service and all that, but there is really no one-on-one talk. So assuming in a relationship is very lethal. Is very lethal because it's very detrimental to the relationship as well. That's why communication is important. Communication removes assumptions. Communication removes misinterpretations. Mm. And that's something that is one of the most important thing that we do to heal mistrust, to repair it, and that's something that is not just important, but it's the foundation really, because once we start communicating, we can express how it felt. You were texting someone in the middle of the night. I felt like I'm not worthy of, I thought I'm your partner in your life and your wife or your husband, and you're keeping secrets from me. I felt dismissed. I felt, you talk about all these feelings. I feel like I'm being cheated. But what happens sometimes when people talk, and that's the how, is just like, oh, you are hiding something from me. And they start pointing fingers. They're judging. They already made a verdict against you without you saying a word. And that's not communication. That's not communication. That's accusation, really. There is no communication in that type of style. So therefore, when we are in communicating, what's the most important thing we do in communicating? Listening. A lot of people think communicating is about talking. It's not. It's about listening. Guys, need to listen. Listening is the most important thing in communication. Why is that? Because it's something that would help us understand. Because if we don't listen, we just talk, we don't understand. We will not understand what's going on. We will not understand the person's feeling, we will not understand the person's position, where they're coming from. We will not be able to understand. So, and once the person who initiates the talk, they need to talk about their perspective and allow the other person, and also they need to allow the other person to share their perspective. Because if you're coming in a conversation, communication, right? I say communicate. But if you're coming into communication with judgment, why do you even communicate? So why do you want to even bother to listen to the other person's perspective? So there's really no need for that. There is really, you already made your judgment. So therefore, when we come to communicate with the other person, we need to come and keep in mind that I'm only presenting 50% of the truth, which is based on emotion, on thoughts, but there's no evidence from it. So what people do most of the time is they even go for divorce, they curse the life out of the other person, and there's anger that takes over, and resentment, and pain, and suffering. And what do you think the other person is going to do? It's like, oh, I understand, you're in pain. I'll take it, and I'll just be patient. No, they're going to do the same thing. The cycle of negativity is going to continue, and they're going to have the ugliest divorce. And who's going to be paying for the price? The children. The children are going to be paying for the price. You try to explain that to the children, they don't understand. They're not mature enough to understand all that stuff. But if you were to talk about this also between friends, guess what? Your friends, your mutual friends, will be impacted as well, because they're in the middle. They're like, oh, so you guys are inviting that guy? Oh, you know what? I'm not coming to your party. It's like, it's my party. No, if you're inviting that guy, I'm not coming. He betrayed me, and they start to mediate between you two. It's not gonna work. So therefore, it's really important to be mindful of the impact of the mistrust and the impact of on the relationship and the people around in that relationship. I'm going to stop here. Any thoughts or questions before I end? All right. So before we jump into conclusions, we need to be mindful that the feel or the thought of mistrust is only my perception, only my perspective. And if I were to dismiss the other person's perspective, I am as wrong to do so as much as the other person by doing whatever they did for me to lose my trust to them. So therefore, when I feel mistrust, we need to be able to manage that and reach out to the other person with the assumption of 10% up to 50%, not more than 50% of assumption or possibility that this is true, because it's only your perception. And allow the conversation to go both ways. You talk and listen, and the other person to talk and listen. And focus on repairing and to understand the perspective. And it doesn't have to be done your way, and it doesn't have to be done on the other person's way. Just building that ability to come to conclusion. And if there is a need to apologize, if there is a need to acknowledge the other person's perspective, then that's needed. That's how we repair trust. Till the next talk, I hope you all have wonderful times and happy relationship. Stay happy.